Now, for more on Chile's economy, I'm joined by Pablo Policzer. He's the director of the Latin American Research Center at the University of Calgary. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So give us an idea, just how important is this election to the Chilean economy?
It's hugely important. At stake is, in many ways, the legacy of what the Michelle Bachelet government is aiming to do. Michelle Bachelet has aimed to really strengthen, in many ways, the public sector and the role of the public sector in the economy. The leading candidate, former President Sebastián Piñera, is offering a very different kind of perspective. Mr. Piñera, in many ways, represents and is advocating for a return to the kind of neoliberal austerity policies that have characterized the Chilean economic performance for the past several decades, which Michelle Bachelet has aimed to curb. On the other hand, the other contender in the election, Senator Guillet, represents, he's an independent, but he represents the center-left sector that even though he's an independent, he would be in some ways a continuity candidate with the legacy of Bachelet. So even though Mr. Piñera is likely to come in first in the first round of elections, it is not a guarantee at all that he could win the second round, because there will be a strong range of opposition against him.
So how do you think these differing visions for the economy are going to affect it in the long run?
Well, they will set in motion very important patterns. If Mr. Piñera wins, he has signaled that he aims to privatize a large part of the public sector. And in many ways overturn the achievements that the Bachelet government has undertaken. And so, in some ways, it would make a big difference. This election is going to make a big difference.
Now, we already saw economies like Venezuela devastated by their reliance on oil when the prices crashed. Now, obviously, with Chile having a similar situation when it comes to its copper, what are candidates doing to help them avoid that fate?
Well, your previous report signaled this investment in renewable energies, and that's certainly one major shift that the Chilean sector is trying to undertake, certainly helped by the Chilean government. But Chile remains a copper-producing and a commodity exporting nation. Copper, forests, wood exports, also fisheries are really important. China is, of course, a major customer for all of those products. So that is not about to change anytime soon.
And speaking of China, how do you think this election might perhaps either change or continue its relationship?
Well, to the extent that China remains very hungry for the kinds of commodities that Chile is producing, and China is Chile's largest trading partner and its largest customer. So that relationship is not about to change anytime soon.
Now, we're also seeing this increasing shift to conservative leaders in many parts of the world, and Latin America included. We saw in Argentina, Brazil, and Peru. So if Chile follows suit, how is that going to affect their economic priorities going forward?
Well, as I said before, it really represents the end of what people have called the left turns in Latin America, or the pink tide. So this will be a major shift, not only in Chile, but throughout the region. Although in the Chilean case, in some ways, it could be a return to the kind of pattern of austerity policies and neoliberal policies that Chile has seen since the 1970s, in many ways, that the center-left Concertación government, which led the country after the end of the dictatorship, also stuck to the neoliberal austerity kinds of policies that really came to a crisis in around 2011 when major social movements and protests to strengthen the kinds of public goods delivered by the government and to curb the wave of privatization. Those movements really became politically significant, and that's the kind of pressure that the Bachelet government has really tried to respond to.
Right.
she finds herself in a tricky position insofar as she's been criticized by the right, the sector represented by Sebastián Piñera, for doing away with the privatization, neoliberal austerity policies of the past. And she's also been criticized by the left, which is represented in a third candidate who will not likely win, but who represents an important sector that is putting pressure on the Bachelet government. They've been critical of this government for not going far enough in delivering the kinds of public goods that they have demanded.
We'll certainly have to see what Chilean voters decide. Thank you so much, Pablo Policzer, Director of the Latin American Research Center at the University of Calgary.